Hello and welcome to the Rest is Football with Micah Richards, Alan Shearer, me, Gary Lineker, and today a special guest, certain David Moyes is with us, who's enjoying life out here in Germany after a little bit of free time, David.
Oh, it feels great, let me tell you. not having to think about picking teams and making the decisions and doing the media and all the things that come with the job. But look, I love football. I want to come and watch it, and I'm happy to be part of
you might change your mind when you do the late highlights show.
No, that's I've got that later on, which who knows what that'll be like later. But anyway, there you go.
You're looking well.
Thank you. I got a couple of weeks away in America for a couple of weeks before I get out. I think when you go into the job, when you're in management, everybody thinks, look at the stadium, I'm all stressed, and right, what it's like the minute you get out, you just going, oh, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, we're here at the Euros, obviously in Germany, and you're looking at the national team coaches, and they don't get as long with their players, obviously, as you do at club level.
Yeah. Do
you look on here and think, actually, that might be quite nice? You get a bit more balance to your life, or do you think that would be too hard and doesn't appeal? Would you ever fancy a national team?
No, I would never. I'm not going to say no to anything at the moment, but in the same breath, I'm not going to say yes to anything at the moment either. I think international football is something which might appeal to me going forward, but at the moment, I'm quite happy watching the other managers take the stress out.
Well, the way Scotland started, you might be getting a call in a few days' time. What did you make of that? I mean, they struggled, didn't they?
Scotland struggled. But, I felt like it when I was out here. There was a big optimism. Scotland brought incredible support out to Germany. And my bigger thing was just to think that how could we survive? Because we'd played Leverkusen and Freiburg this year with West Ham. And you were watching Leverkusen hadn't lost a game all year. And then I started to think about the British teams who could have come to Germany and get a result. Now, I'm not talking about England, because I certainly remember the Michael Owen game out here when Michael Owen scored all the goals. But even when I look back, I can't remember even England coming out and winning loads of games on German soil. You might correct me in a minute or two.
No.
But even the Champions League, coming and winning in Germany is really, really hard. So for Scotland to get the first game, the opening game of the Euros, it was always a big step, never mind sort of getting the build-up where it got.
Have you enjoyed the tournament so far? Who's impressed you?
I went to watch the game. I went to see Spain and Croatia. I thought Spain won relatively comfortable against Croatia. No, you wouldn't really necessarily want to play Croatia. They've got some really good players as well. But I thought Spain made it look relatively easy with a couple of youngsters and quite a young team. But still seeing Premier League stars, Rodri starring in the game as well, and lots of really good young players as well.
Without being disrespectful, you've been around the block, you're an experienced manager, you've managed abroad in Spain and what have you. What's the biggest change from when you started out to now?
Look, I think it's a whole lot of things. You're all really experienced players, and you're probably not that long out of it. But I think the minute you come out, I think
I'm on
yeah. But I see so much change in the work that's getting done. I mean, there's huge amount of work going on behind the scenes on with the analysts, and you might say, well, that's analysts who are doing that work, but it's not really, because it has to come from the top. How are we pressing? How are we building? What's the practices? How's it going? So there is a lot more to it. I think there's a lot more responsibility on the players. But I also think the players have got their own team around them now. The players could have their own chefs now. They'll have their own, motivation people to speak to. They might have psychologists. And in our day, maybe there might have been one psychologist for the whole group. Now, there's a good chance that people have got their own. And a lot of those things are much better than maybe what it was in the past.
You have to embrace that as you grow through that.
And actually, from a generation of mine and probably yours, Gary, those things were not seen as much. Now, all those things are there. The players now need much more communication. I think about it, my time as a player, is you try to avoid the managers. You try to say, bloody hell, the manager's coming. No, make sure you go the other way. Don't want to see the manager. Don't want him to see you.
Micah said that when you walked through the door.
But now there's a whole lot more communication between the players and the managers, and much more stuff daily going on. But as well as that, I think I found it more harder because
I was just going to ask you that. Is it harder to be a manager now?
When I set out, and you boys as well, Scotland actually had when you look at the Scottish managers, some of the greats, when you go to Sir Alex and even George Graham and other people. Scotland had really good managers, Jock Stein, and we could go on and on about them. And it was quite a tough upbringing. You hear about Sir Alex talking about the hairdryer treatment and all the things that came from it. I was probably brought up just a bit at the end of that in that group, but it was a bit like went into the dressing room, hadn't played well. Don't lift your eyes in case the manager sees me. You know what I mean? I don't
played for a Scottish manager, John Wallace.
Yeah,
terrified me.
The managers at that time, you were expecting to get a ball, but nobody took it. No, you keep your head down. You might have had a bite back, you might have a fight back. I think there's a different group, and I don't know if it's the cultures that have come in from different countries, which has altered that a little bit as well.
You can't do that now, really, as a manager. You can't lay into people.
No, I don't think you can lay in as hard as the way I.
And do you think it's better for that or worse for that in the game?
I think it's probably worse for it. I do. I think
Why?
it's worse. I think it's worse now, Gary, because I think that I don't think if there's any manager I've known or played for or ever tried to be, there's never anything personal.
No.
But you're trying to find ways of getting a reaction. And leadership in the dressing rooms become, you boys, I look at the people when I look at maybe John Terry or Tony Adams or people through the years, who were, I don't see that. I think at the real top end, I think they've got good leadership. And it mainly comes from the managers like Pep or Mikel's doing a really good job.
Would you have bought yourself?
Do you know? It's a really good question. When I was playing Celtic, I was leaving, and I thought I was going to Arsenal. Actually, I was leaving Celtic to join Arsenal, and I usually remember when I say this. And Terry Neal had phoned me up, who was a manager at the time. Charlie Nick had just gone, and me and Charlie Nick were big friends from Celtic and had played together. And
Champagne, right? Champagne
Charlie, and phoned me up, and actually I thought I was going. The next call came back and says, no, we'd like to bring you on loan, David, instead. And I said, no way, I'm coming there. I play for Celtic. And at that time, we would have played against any teams and probably challenged any of the teams in England, whereas we're talking about that wouldn't happen just now. And I said no, and the ridiculous part to the story is I ended up signing for Cambridge United, a bit later on.
Do you regret saying no to that?
I don't know. I wanted to play regular. I didn't want to. I mean, I wasn't playing all the time at Celtic. I was on the bench, and I wasn't playing all the time at Celtic. So I wanted to go and play. So in a strange way, I really enjoyed my career because I went and played the games, over 500 games, something like that, and I got all my games at clubs like Bristol and Cambridge. But I just could never quite make the Scotland team.
Does that hurt you?
Right, that hurts not because Scotland had great centre halves. So
yeah, they did.
Had great centre halves.
Can we address the elephant in the room though?
What
There's
was
a
that?
rumour that you tried to sign me when I was at Man City.
Was that fucking daft? Well, someone that's successful. He's not fucking signing you.
I just thought I'd lighten the mood a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like an interrogation and all, David. You know what I mean? Can you confirm or deny?
Do you know something is? I wouldn't like to put myself on the spot on here. Was I bringing you to Preston or Everton?
Everton. When I was at City as a youngster.
We might have had a
I think
look at you. And might have
just a quick look.
I think that's a polite no. Did I fuck?
I don't think he was happy with my lifestyle. Let's say that.
Is that right? Yeah.
That was the reports coming back.
We'd have been detectives on you checking to see what you were like.
That was one of your better decisions, David, trust me. You had a long career. You said 500 odd games.
Yeah.
You scored quite a few goals, actually.
I did actually.
40 odd?
Yeah.
43,
Do you know something is? I got one season in Scotland, I think I got 10 playing for Dunfermline. I remember, and I used to, even up to, the boys will tell you in the years, you say, I can centre halves can score dead easy. Looking up for corners every week, how you not getting your head on things, etc., etc. And they used to say no, but I did. I used to get 1 or 2 goals from corners, and I wasn't. It was one of the things I was okay at. The rest of it was debatable, Yeah.
When did you start thinking about management, coaching?
Like really, really young, Gary. Not because I ever thought about it. Alan knows a wee bit about this. In Scotland, Largs was where all the Scottish managers went, and what happened at that time was Walter Smith, Jim McLean, Sir Alex. They would all come down and go to Largs because it was a great week. They had an unbelievable week. They were having a few drinks and football people, but they gave their time up to up and coming coaches over the years. And it was the biggest thing of it was the level of the management who used to come down and help. So you're talking about Scottish players and Scottish managers. Scotland had a great period of Scottish managers, whether it was Gordon Strachan, George Burley, all had periods of management in England. So there was an awful lot of stuff done down at Largs, which gave us a chance. So I had actually gone down as a young boy, as a runner, had to do all the work for the coaches, running, doing overlapping fullbacks, or being twin striker player, whatever it was. And actually got the bug for it then. I became a fully qualified coach when I was 21, 22.
As early as that?
Yeah. Oh. I moved to England just after. I moved to England to Cambridge, and I thought, I don't think they understand the Scottish badge. So I then went and done the whole of the English badge again. So I'd actually qualified in Scotland as an A coach, and then I went and done the whole thing again.
So you basically studied at Cambridge?
Yes. Well, at that time it was Lilleshaw, if you remember, right? So you know Lilleshaw well.
I remember that.
So I'd done my badges then, and then obviously over the years, the badges have changed with the pro license and all the other bits and pieces. So. But I honestly never thought, Gary, that I was going to have a situation where I was going to say, hey, I'm going to be a manager. I hoped that maybe, hey, by the way, maybe I'll take a boys team or I'll be good enough to get a job somewhere. But it sort of fell into that. I'd started to get offered an awful lot of jobs nearer the end. No, I wouldn't say the end of my career.
Really?
People would... Asa Hartford, I played at Shrewsbury. Asa Hartford was the manager, and he'd asked me would I become one of the coaches with him when I was probably, 28, 29 or something at that time. So there was something there. And then when I back to Scotland and back down to England again, it started to happen for me.
And you ended up at Preston. And
ended up at Preston.
Some good managers been there. I mean, you go back, obviously, Bill Shankly.
Yeah.
Gordon Milne.
Yeah.
I played for at Leicester. Some goodies there.
Yeah, there was some. It was a great point. And to be fair, I went, and you'll know this is where the difference is. And sometimes as a coach or a player, and I had John Beck, and you'll all remember the history of John Beck. You know, a long ball and this and this and this, and he was actually a really, really good coach, really detailed, really thoughtful. You know, thinking about things maybe not playing the way nobody liked it. The players didn't like how we played. Nobody liked it, but we had to do it. And then John left, and the assistant Gary got the job, and then I was below that, and so Preston kept it going. And there was a great chairman at the time. Brian Gray, who was very good, and the people around gave me the chance to get the job there.
What was it like when you first started and you're first in charge of a dressing room? We talked to Alan about his experiences, and obviously it went tits up quite quickly. But it must be hard. Suddenly you're the man in charge, and how do you have to assert yourself?
Yeah, I think I tell this story because I do it for the young coaches when I got the Everton job. We done it on the Thursday night, and it was and I had to be in the Friday morning. So and I'm driving, I'm saying, So there was David Genoa, Duncan Ferguson, Tommy Gravison. I'm saying, they'll hardly even know who I am. You know what I mean? I'm thinking they're not know what this is. And having to address them and be enough for they sort of believe in you and do a little bit like that. So it was really, really difficult. And I remember thinking, how am I going to speak? So there's so many parts of the journey as a manager. You know, when you think of the things how you have to do it, you know, it's bad enough now. You're used to speaking. You're speaking regularly on the TV. You know, whatever you say, we're not actually trained to be particularly good with our words or communication. We've been football players. Yeah. And suddenly you've got to go and tell these boys, you know, how you want them to play and what you want them to do and how we're going to go about it. So we had big characters, sadly, including Kevin Campbell, who just passed away. So they were all part of the dressing room at that time.
Well, I must ask you, what was he like to manage, Kev?
Kev was a great lad, always smiling, you know, always cheery, huge character. He was a big character, and obviously came from Arsenal with big experience and carried that a little bit with him as well when he was there. As you all know, he was a handful to play against. He was a big, powerful centre forward, and I think I had him for probably about 3 years at the time. He's a big part of how I get started at Everton.
Yep. Can you remember what you did that first time you said you had to make your presence felt?
I don't think I do, but I just remember I was shitting myself. Not getting anything. And nobody can really explain it. But I'll tell you, I'm only telling you this because you've got me going on it, and I hope I'm not. So actually, when we were at Preston, we had no staff. So nobody had really staff. No, you know what it was like.
Yeah.
So there was me, there was the assistant manager, there was a goalkeeping coach, and there was a physio. So the physio would normally take the warm-up with me at Preston. So for 3 years, I was taking the warm-up. So was the manager taking the warm-up as well. So the night before, the Friday night before, I couldn't sleep, and it was more because should I take the warm-up or should I not take the warm-up? It was worse than the team. Because I'm saying, they're going to laugh at me. They're going to laugh
Doing star jumps.
I'm out there stretching. You know, so you look to see where it's come. You're talking about the things where it's come. And actually, and I eventually says, look, it got you the job. Why are you going to change it? And I did. I actually started, I had it a little bit where I said is, being out, you had a feel for the players, were they in the right mood, was it, what way was the wind blowing, was the sun in my eyes, so it gave you a little bit of an insight. And I still actually like getting out onto the pitch and seeing it before the games. I still have done. But that was a huge decision as well.
Brilliant.
But you know something is...
And what decision did you make?
I made the decision to take the warm-up.
Good man. Good man.
And do you want to know, David Unsworth scored after 35 seconds. Oh, my goodness, we beat Fulham. We beat Fulham on the day, and it was my start. But
so I bet you did every warm-up after that.
So I kept it going until I lost. I think that was it. But I think we might have played Yarn in our second game we went to Derby and we won at Derby. And I think we were 4-1 up at the time. And me and the boy were saying we'd take a draw at this time. We were just, it was just one of them where it was. But we went to, this was not the first time I came up against Sir Bobby, but it was the first time we went up to Newcastle, and Newcastle battered us 5-2. And I remember after the game, what I was going to do, and it was the first time Sir Bobby came out and said, and it's welcome to the Premier League for David Moyes.
Oh, right.
Oh, and I went,
wow.
It's
not like
no, and I went, oh, yeah, bugger. Oh, I said, no, and it got my goat up. But
we've got to the Everton part of your career. Now, you had a fantastic period there, didn't you? Some good players, good team.
Good team, built it up over the time. And
constantly in the top half of the table.
After we got going, we had a little bit of a dip at the start. A good year, maybe not so good the next year, a good year, not so good. But in the main, we built up brilliantly well. And I'm thankful to Bill Kenwright, Sir Philip Carter, all the people who gave me that opportunity.
Yeah. Bill Kenwright left us not long ago. It was sad, wasn't it?
He was a brilliant guy to me. He was someone I'd phone or he'd phone me. And I think sometimes, especially when you're a young manager and you're in football, you need somebody who you can bounce off and is not going to, would always be calm with you, and don't get too excited.
So you get to Everton. How do you go about signing players? Can you talk us through that process? Because I'm always intrigued.
And I suppose it's changed a lot, hasn't it, for a manager? Because you would have been probably...
I was young.
In charge of things like that, weren't you then? Whereas nowadays, it's more of a coach's role, isn't it? So it's a good question.
Well, I've got to say... Micah, we actually took a lot of pride in it. And we used to, everybody will have one now. We called it the bunker back then. We had a room where we'd go in, we'd be in all the time, the staff, with really good scouts. You have to remember, even people like John Stones, we signed John Stones from Barnsley, and we brought Leighton Baines from Wigan and Tim Cahill from Millwall, and and all different eras we were bringing in. And I remember I wanted the scouts and I wanted my people out, and I made sure they had to come in with information, and I was grilling them saying, so who were you watching today and what were you doing? And we'd be saying, get him off, he's no good, or get, so we worked really hard. And if I was giving some advice, there's a couple of bits of advice you give to coaches, but one you would have to say, if you don't get your recruitment right, you'll probably lose your job. You know what I mean? It's such a big part. If you don't sign good players, whether you're a great manager, it's going to make it really difficult.
You said jokingly to Micah earlier about having a detective looking at him. In how much depth do you look at players? Do you look at their lifestyle? Do you look at their family? Do you look at their history? Or what is?
I used to make a point of that. I was never ashamed to phone people up. I used to phone people up and say, what's Micah like? What's his nightlife like? Is he out and about? And
Oh dear.
They're all saying,
No wonder he didn't sign you.
No.
Cross. That's his wages, cross.
When I got the Everton job, Bill Kenwright said to me, he says, David, I can only give you $5 million a year to spend. And I says, yeah, okay. I says, well, here's the deal, is you take no players away from me and you allow me to take the players wherever I want and give them the best I can give the players I've got. Shook his hand and that was it. And that was the deal. Right. So it meant that over the years, I was able to take the players away to New York. I took them to Miami. I took them wherever, and we're able to do that. And in truth, he never sold MD what he couldn't. Wayne obviously left. Wayne left at one point.
Was Wayne Rooney the best player you worked with? I mean, they were very young at the time. But
Wayne was unbelievable player and just a something different, a complete throwback. Strong, fast, could play. And it was a bit like we were talking about managers. We were trying to introduce him slowly, trying to get him in, and we're saying,
was it obvious from what age did you go, we've got this superstar kid?
Well, I have to be fair. When I got the job, I took off Walter Smith, and I went to Walter Smith's house the night before I was taking the job of him because Walter Smith was a good friend, and he says, I'll tell you what, the one thing you've got is you've got a boy coming through in the academy, Wayne Rooney. And the usual. I've heard that before, lots of stories like that. But by the end of that season, they were playing, I think they're playing Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Youth Cup at Goodison. And I remember coming down and they'd finished, they'd won, and I saw Wayne was there. And I sort of said to him, I says, you'll be with me next season. And at that time, Wayne was, At that time, if you remember, Wayne wasn't a good speaker.
Right, yeah.
Didn't know he was quite shy in everything he'd done. And actually, before the end of the season, I think we had him on the bench at Southampton. We had to get him out of school to put him on the bench at Southampton. But then, as he came on, he was just a monster. And actually, we went to Scotland in a pre-season friendly, and I can still remember it. And we went up to Scotland. We were playing Queen's Park at Hampden because Queen's Park play at Hampden. And I'd brought a few friends to the game and that. And I said, we've got a young centre forward here. And I was saying, and he scored a hat-trick against Queen's Park. Right. Only a pre-season friend, but Wayne was 16. Yeah. And actually, it made me think at the time, I didn't know how many English centre forwards had scored a hat-trick at Hampden at that time. So he was a phenomenal. He really was. And I remember, I'm only saying I'm doing all the talking here. I'm sorry, I'll tell you this, there was a game going on.
That's the idea.
There was a game with this 8-a-side game going on, and I just remember all the staff were sort of dotted round, different parts control, and the ball had gone, and he chipped the goalkeeper. And it chipped the goalkeeper from an incredibly tight angle. And it was one of these moments where everybody sort of looked around and went, wait, did he mean that? Yeah. Did he mean that? And no, they were, no, everybody looking at each other as if to say, not sure. He was
brilliant.
But he was also a bugger. Fucking
Come on, give us a story.
Fucking kick all the balls away in that, and hitting the crossbar from the halfway line, but he was a street footballer. I saw him. He was one of the last, but certainly there wasn't many left after Wayne. That's for sure.
Was he difficult to coach, to manage, or?
Yeah, a little bit, because he was quite feisty. Even as a 16-year-old, he wanted to play, and he was.
It was throughout his career, wasn't it? Really? I mean, he had that edge to him, which you need probably.
He did,
as well.
and he was able. No, he actually. I remember. I think he came in one day, and we had a few. At the time, you'll know there was boxing bags in the fitness room or the gym. And the boys would be on the bags, and it was big dunk, and nobody could hear big dunk. But Wayne was saying, I'll take MD on with the gloves on and stuff like that. So Wayne was that type. So you meant that he could put him in against the men, and he wouldn't be fazed by it.
What's it like as a manager when you've got a talent like that, but you can't keep hold of him? He's got to go because you don't get points with money, do you?
No, you don't. And it was always Wayne probably doesn't know. Well, he might know. I used to go everywhere where Wayne was playing, nearly without him knowing. Made his debut for England. I was there, making sure that,
like as a father-like figure,
like that with it. And then when he broke his metatarsal, I was over in Portugal at the games out there, and the papers were saying, Wayne's meeting on a yacht out, and I was fucking raging, I'm saying, because nobody's getting near him. Don't let MD near him, because I really wanted to keep him.
Yeah.
you got to remember, I was a really young manager when I went there as far as that goes, and I had nobody to look at. The only thing I could remember was going back to Charlie Nicholas at Celtic was a little bit like that. You know, how did Billy McNeil control Charlie Nicholas? And I knew because I went out with Charlie and around with Charlie. And the only one was Giggsy and Fergie. How did Giggsy and how did Fergie sort of control Giggsy at that time? And obviously Alex done it with that iron rod, which the Scottish managers, I think, had in abundance around that time.
Were you not that?
Yeah, I was, yeah. And I don't think it suited Wayne really that I was like that, because I'm saying, no, make sure you're not doing that, make sure you're not out there, and make sure, and there's bits of it when you look back you would regret. But that's life as it is, you know. And he changed his agent. He's got a really good agent in Paul Stretford, who he's had for years. He changed them. Now I'm saying, no, what's he doing here? No, how's this going to work? Before you know it, we were getting Coca-Cola adverts, or we're getting something else coming in, and I didn't like it.
No, because I suppose you just want him to focus completely and utterly on football.
Keep developing.
Yeah. Was he the best player you managed?
Yeah.
Probably.
When I went to Manchester United, there was some fantastic players there as well. You know, some really good footballers.
Yeah. But after your hugely successful spell at Everton, then you get the call from Manchester United. You couldn't say no to Man United, could you?
Was the part of you thinking, Christ, this is a tough act to follow?
If I told you I'd been contacted at that time by, I don't know, 10 teams.
I can imagine, yeah.
I had a decision whether to say I'd been at 11 years at Everton, and there was part of me saying I'm overstaying my welcome, and actually we had every year we just couldn't break in because we didn't have enough money really to go again. And I didn't want to stay where the next year, one of the years, ended up way down at the bottom. And I'd spoken, a lot of clubs had phoned me, and the Man United one, I had fallen out with Alex. I fell out with Alex a little bit because we drew 4 each with him the year before, if you remember.
Yes.
Which let Man City win the league.
Right.
And
thank you for that.
Yeah.
But it's your job to try and get a good result.
Yeah. But Sir Alex had said to me, we tried harder in that game than we did against Liverpool in the semi-final of the FA Cup at Wembley. Classic. And Kenny was the manager. And I'm saying, do you know that I'd have done to beat Liverpool as Everton manager at Wembley in the semi-final of the FA Cup? I'd have given anything. And actually at that time we were a better team than Liverpool. We lost 2-1 the final. Anyway, next week we'd Man United, drew 4 each at and the usual, we go into Alex's room, great wine, and he's always on and what, and he never looked at me, he just kept looking at the racing on the telly. Can you say bad words on you?
You can say what you want.
Yeah. You should have fucking tried as hard as that last week. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, do you know what I'd have given to you know? So it was 4 each. So we sort of, and the truth is, I used to go to Alex for quite a lot of advice. Alex and Walter Smith, and over my career, I'd been getting offered loads of jobs, and I'd go to Alex. I'd say, "No, what do you think?" And he'd talk. Years ago, I got offered Sheffield Wednesday job and different jobs, and he'd say, "Nah, you can't do that, son, because of him, Carboni."
So he was like a mentor almost.
He did, so I was able to go. So by the time only came near the end of the season, actually, it was getting round, and he phoned me up and he says, and I remember it really well because I'd just turned 50. My wife had bought me a watch, and I'd gone through to Manchester to a strap needed altered, and it was a day off, jeans on, t-shirt, phone rang, and we were actually in Manchester, we were in Altrincham, and he says, "Hello, son. Where are you?" I went, "Oh, fucking hell. I'm like, dear, it's Alex." You know what I mean? You know,
it's still intimidating.
She's like, "Oh, yeah,
you're 50 years old, he's still intimidating.
He says, "Can you drop up to the house?" I says, "Yeah, okay." So with the wife, and I'm saying, "Oh, flipping it, I can't go to Alex's house with jeans on."
Right.
I says, "Brilliant. I'll need to go up to Marks and Spencer's and buy it." You know what I mean? You know, can't go up to Alex's house not looking like this. So I went to dropped her off up at the shopping centre, and I'm saying, "Oh, he'll be wanting me to take somebody in loan off him. You know, he'll be wanting me to." And why I'm saying it is because you have to think, even over the years, we'd taken David Healy and Michael Appleton from Man United as young boys, and the meetings I'd had with Alex when I met him privately when he was taking Wayne to Man United. So we had lots of things at different times. And I had obviously huge respect for him because he was a Scottish manager. So got to the house and took me in the house and said, "I'm going to make a cup of tea." He took me up to his sort of lounge up the stairs, went down and sat down on a sort of leather sofa. Bit like this chair here, actually. And he says, "I'm retiring and you're the next manager of Man United."
Really?
Oh, wow. So
And you know
it
that
was
way-
Sir Alex himself broke the news to
He said that
or
to me. Nobody
offered you the job.
else.
Wow.
Nobody else. And you know that way I could feel myself sliding down the leather seat. Sliding off the edge of You know?
Yeah.
You know, when you go back to things and I'll look at it and you say, there was no formal interview. There was no what we're seeing now, you know, you're talking about character references and people doing other work. It was Sir Alex sort of trust and
Wow.
and but the bigger thing was he said to me, he says, "You can't tell your family, tell your wife."
Oh, what?
And I said, and the bigger thing for me in life was terrible because I had such a good relationship with Bill Kenwright, and he knew that there was always things going on. I wasn't sure what I was doing.
What, how long before the end of the season was this then?
It was. I'll tell you what it was. It was probably just about the first week, second week in April, because we were playing Liverpool the next Saturday, and if as long as we didn't lose to Liverpool, we would finish above them in the Premier League. And I'm saying I had a huge game coming up, and it was going to Anfield. So first thing, so I had to go back and pick the wife up. I back and pick the wife up and get her in the car.
These trousers I bought are too tight.
Can I take them back?
I says, "I'm the new manager of Man United."
Oh, so you told
So he says, "You can tell your wife, but nobody else." So we couldn't go back and tell the kids. And my dad couldn't tell my dad. So it was terrible walking about. But it was more, I was more in shock that Alex was retiring. When I heard that Alex was retiring, I'm saying, I cannot believe he's retiring. Yeah. But I think when you look back, you go back to like the season before, there was a bit of talk that he may have done it then if he'd won the league. And in the end he didn't. So he stayed on and obviously won the league when I got the job.
How was that going to Manchester United? Is that intimidating following Sir Alex at all? And I mean, massive.
Do you know something? I wish I had thought about it more. Howard Wilkinson told me, he says, if you look at the people who've followed all the managers who've had the long periods, you know, I think Sir Bobby was one of them. I think he went to Ipswich. I think they talked about maybe Don Revie. And you look at the people who had done the time, the managers, nobody had really had successful. No. And actually Howard had said, you know, and I hadn't really looked at it that way.
I always thought, honestly, that the job at Manchester United was not the one after Sir Alex, it was the one after the one after. Because I think, and I take your point perfectly, look at like someone like Arsene Wenger, and I'm sure we'll now see it with Jurgen Klopp, because when someone's at a club that long, they become a dominating presence, and everything there is about how they've structured everything.
Exactly.
And I assume that the players are used to a certain way for years and years and years, and then somebody comes in, he has to be slightly different. It must be incredibly difficult.
Well, you'll know, you've had it. I think the Manchester United players would have probably found it'd have been harder for them than even me, because they've been used to working with Sir Alex and how he works and how he managed them. And
were they fair with you, the players? Do you?
I felt so at the time. I've heard different stories, but I've got to say, I felt it was fine. I mean, look, there was a lot of things which I had to get used to. The enormity. I saw some unbelievable players with a mentality to win. Like, oh wow! We were talking about how the dressing room's changed a little bit now. No, those boys would have fought each other, which fought each other to get results and real winners. Really did it. That hugely impressed me with lots of stuff like that. But there was other parts of it which, well, Man United were winning the league that season. The other teams were all out strengthening again and doing the business. Yeah. And it was the end of an era, really, in terms of a lot of players were coming to the end of their careers. Man. And I had a lot of players who, I mean, looking back, top players, but probably they would now say, hey, by the way, I was probably getting closer to, and it was needing a bit of a, of a change.
If you had your time again, would you have taken the job?
I don't think you really ever turn down Man United. Maybe Alan has. I think maybe as a player possibly, but I don't know if you get those opportunities as a manager. You do. I had actually had 10 years, 11 years with Everton in the Premier League. Sort of been knocking at the door. Why would I not be going to go and try and take on? And at that time, I have to have said. There was so many of the big clubs I'd spoken to quietly and asked what I was doing, etc. And it was only really the Man United one which sort of tipped. Well, I get no choice.
It's a huge job. At what point during your tenure there did you start to think, this is not working, it's difficult?
I would say probably, it was probably quite early on I found it difficult because I remember the league fixtures coming out and think to myself, yeah, bugger. Look at these league fixtures. Right away, I think I had Liverpool and Man City in the early games, and I thought, my goodness, this is going to be tough, and it was because at that time, they were better, and it felt as if even though Man United won the league, they'd gone out and they'd bought really well and brought in good players.
The lowest point of your managerial career,
absolutely.
Was it difficult, tough on you? So.
Hugely difficult because I was proud that I wanted to be successful. Everybody wants to do a good job wherever you go in it. And I think when you lose your job at that level of club, it's not just news in the UK, it's news worldwide. Everybody knows when you end up at the Manchester United job, everybody knows you. So I've got to say it was tough on the family as well, I think. But you've all been in football, we all have bad times.
Yeah, but how did you deal with that though? When you're going through that?
I think at that time, again, I just had to try and do what I'd ever done, show a bit of resilience, stiff upper lip, get out of the way a wee bit, look to try and bounce back the best you can. How are you going to do it? And
go abroad.
Yeah.
¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás? Sí.
Yeah. Bien.
Yeah, that's all I can say. It was even worse.
I'll leave the Spanish to you, shall I? Look at him!
Of course.
That's bastante bien.
Yeah.
Impresionante.
Is that what you thought? You thought, I'm just going to get out the way and I'm going to... it must have been a good experience, right?
Spain was unbelievable. And like I say this to MD, who's never been to San Sebastian.
It's beautiful.
If you don't go, you're something up with you. It really is. It's someplace. And it was great. I loved it being in Spain. I loved it.
Great food.
The players were getting the food. San Sebastian's the best. And I've got to say, I really enjoyed working with the players. I found them really good. The Basque players especially. But even the philosophy then at Real Sociedad was 16 of their own homegrown players out the academy. And they brought in maybe 5 or 6 from overseas. And if you look at the Spain team that played the other night, I think they had 5 from Real Sociedad, which is unbelievable. And that means they've nearly all come through the academy.
They do produce players in that small part of the world, that little Basque country.
They do. It's interesting as well. At the LMA dinner there, nearly all the managers at the moment who were up for awards were from the Basque country, from Spain. And it was a bit like talking about where, the lack of, say, British managers maybe generally in the Premier League, all the successful ones were sort of roughly from the Spain region.
So did you work with Oyarzabal? Is that how you pronounce it?
Oyarzabal.
Oyarzabal, yes. Who's playing for Spain?
Yes.
Yeah, I gave him his debut.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. He's a player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a really good player, yeah. He was on the scene at the time and he just broke into the team just before we were leaving. So he played on the left wing at the time. And he's turned in to come on the other day and watch. It was great to see him play.
And then all good things have to come to an end. When did you decide to go to the unwashed?
Unwashed?
That's terrible, isn't it?
I'm joking, Sunderland fans. I'm joking. Don't come at me. We might have to take that.
No, that's staying in now. You're going to have to pay the price for that one.
What was it like there?
Well, actually, in that period when I come back, I was very close to getting back to Everton, and it didn't quite happen. I met Everton. I'd spoken with Celtic as well at the time. I was going to Celtic, and when both of them went away for different reasons, Sunderland were there. I knew Martin Bain really well from his Scottish connections, and the Sunderland job was up. Big Sam had done the job, just got the England job, and I thought, well, why would I not go and do the job? Sunderland's a great club, really good club, but. And I want to know this. I don't know if you can attract all the players to the northeast.
That's tough. Yeah, it's tough.
Really tough. And Newcastle now are attracting some great players up there, but maybe that's because if you pay well enough, you get them. That's it. But Sunderland at the time, we were having to have a sort of maybe not quite the top level player, and it took its course in the end.
Yeah. And you went to West Ham, 2 spells at West Ham.
Yeah.
You must have enjoyed your time there. And a major trophy.
By the way, Gary, it was a brilliant time, because when you get given a job, and especially when you come back, and look, whatever you have to say, we've all got something to prove. Every game you've played, you've something to prove. You've always got to do something. As a manager, I had it, because coming back and maybe not a lot of noise. So the first time we kept him up, I remember as we won at Leicester, which kept us up. I think Nob scored a goal at Leicester and we won. I remember celebrating the bus going back home, and I went back up north to my family, and I remember I was walking at home and a phone rang. It was David Sullivan. He would normally give me a ring and said, yeah. And he said, yeah, David, he says, we're looking at somebody else. And I had one game to go. We were playing Everton in the last game of the season. We beat Everton in at home at London Stadium as well. So we finished the season.
Yeah, I remember it was quite a surprise that you suddenly were.
And I didn't get the job, so I was a bit teed with it. So I have to say, I gave him lots of credit when he phoned me back up and said, would I come back the second time? So... It again was keeping them up, but ultimately to go from sort of being a relegation team to being a team finishing 6th, and then even the next year getting to semi-final of Europe but finishing 7th, and it was only in the last day of the season. We were 6th in the last game of the season, and we lost at Brighton. Man United won, they jumped above us, finished 6th, we finished 7th. But the good thing about that finishing 7th is we got in the Conference League, which meant we went on to win it. So it was terrific.
How was that, winning that trophy? Because, unless you are at one of the huge clubs, it's hard to win a trophy, and a European trophy for West Ham. I mean, it must have been magical, wasn't it?
In the business we're in, there's not many people get that opportunity to lift a trophy.
Yeah.
I can think of loads of managers or loads of players who've had great careers and, done well out of it, but not had an opportunity to do that. And look, I've come close. I've won the FA Cup final, won a couple of things in the lower leagues, but never really got to that level. And it was a magical moment, because we were on a journey, and I'm saying, when is this going to come to a halt? When we're, someone's going to pick us off here. And even if a bad game, we had an unbelievable record in Europe over the 3 years.
Yeah. You did.
Yeah. I mean, I know Real Madrid's a different level. They play different level of football, but I think we won more games than any other team in Europe over the 3 years or so with the games. But brilliant moment for everybody.
And even this season, Leverkusen. I mean,
Leverkusen,
they've won every single game except for the final against Atalanta. Yeah.
We've really enjoyed it. It was a brilliant time for us, and I loved it, really did.
Do you know, coming towards the end at West Ham, we're sat in the media, and I think, I like you and I respect you, and I know what you've done, and you helped me with my badges when I was coming through. So there's always there's a part of me that's
How did he help you?
With my coaching badges. I went up to Scotland, and David was one of the assessors there, so he was sort of giving me the nudge. This is what they want. This is how they want you to deliver it, and what have you. So I really enjoyed that, and I looked at you and I thought, you know what, he's such a nice bloke. So there was a part of me that when you're getting criticised, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, this fucking bloke's done an unbelievable job here. Yes, I do like him, and yes, I will try and stick up for him, but in the main, he's done a great job. So you must have been sort of hurt at some of the criticism that's coming towards you at the end of your time at West Ham.
It was, because actually, we're a bit older now, and we're experienced enough, and we know when. By the way, I think when things are unjust is when you get older, you start to get annoyed. You say, no, that's not fair. That's not correct. So, there was a couple of games where I thought, we won at Fulham 1-0. There was a banner, no Moyes out. This was 2 years ago. And I thought, my goodness, we just won here, and that was what it was. And, my history, and because I've been in football a long time like you boys, I can't really think of West Ham doing an awful lot better in my whole time. In my whole thoughts on football, over the years, I can think, might be relegation material, might be close to it, bottom of the league.
Grass is always greener on the other side.
Well, that's it. So the criticism. I don't know if there's MD who criticism doesn't hurt. We see it now, so much now, and I actually, because I want to stick up a lot for managers, and you work in it, there's loads of mental health issues now. throughout life, and we have to respect all of them. But yet there seems to be a bit of a lack of respect that it's okay to say, by the way, phone in today and tell us why the manager of West Ham United should lose his job or do that.
Yeah.
But yet we couldn't do that in any other walk of life.
Yeah.
But it seems to be that that's okay to do that. Managers are fair game because they earn good money. But
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
so why should we be the focus of the criticism? You know, look, by the way, you've been players, didn't play well today, Gary. Alan, you didn't score when you should have scored. You know, we've all got that, and we can take that. No, the manager picked the wrong team. We can all take that, but there's bits of it gone to other levels now, what you're talking about. And I don't do social media, I don't listen, so I don't, but I get the feeling that most things from the newspapers are now getting picked up, and they're writing it.
I think we're fair though, aren't we? At the Beeb, when we're doing that.
I think we all try and be fair. And I've never called for a manager to lose his job. Fans, fans will do that. They pay their money, they go along and stuff. But in terms of having a pop at people, managers always seem to have been fair game, don't they?
Yeah.
And my goodness, it's a fickle world, isn't it? Football. I mean, you win a trophy, you're doing well. It's not, you're not like fighting relegation or anything. And suddenly, they turn against you for some way. They want something. I think football fans, from my experience, they always want something a little bit better. And what's that old adage that be careful what you wish for? Mm-hmm. And we'll see. And I'm sure you wish West Ham well.
Yeah.
But it was a shame. It did feel
it did. But I've got to say, Gary, at the end when we went away, I've got to say the majority were all with us. And I think
you got a fantastic reception.
And the majority of West Ham supporters are not daft. They know that there's been really good times, and I wish them well. I really do. I hope that they can pick up Jared Bowen, and we've just sold Declan Rice, and we've got really good.
I've got to ask you about
players.
Declan Rice.
Yeah.
I mean, what a play! Lifted the trophy for you, didn't he, as your captain in the Conference League. Tell us about it. He seems to have wonderful player, obviously, but such a superhuman as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes that is one of the things which, as a manager, you want people who you want to be able to work with people in a relationship. A bit like we said, there's more communication now. So Declan was great, and he learned a lot from Mark Noble as well, I have to say.
I saw someone ask you a question. I can't remember, it was right at the end of the season. It might have been a post-match or a pre-match. Someone says, why do you think it is that West Ham haven't done quite as well this season as they did last season? You just went, Declan Rice.
Yeah, that's right. We conceded more goals this year because Dec could have tidied up. Not saying he'd have tidied up another 20% of them. And when you do that, then that changes results. It changes defeats into draws and different things. So, look, Declan was such a great lad to have, and could cover the ground, and his recovery speed, his ability. But I have to say, and I've said it, he has improved in a lot of ways. He wanted to get forward more in the second year. The first year together when we had Thomas Souček and Declan Rice, Thomas was the one making the box and scoring the goals. Dec was sitting. I think Dec felt, and there was a lot getting said, Declan Rice is not going to be that good. He can't score a goal. He can't really get forward. And I think Dec got a wee bit hurt by that as well. And actually, it didn't actually help our balance as well with the team, because Thomas ended up having to sit a little bit more, and he wasn't as good at what Dec could do. And Dec at the time wasn't scoring quite enough. He was getting a few, but I think he wanted to prove to everybody how good he could be at the other side of it as well.
Is he better as a 6 or an 8 for you now?
I think he's better as a 6.
So do I.
I think, but I've got to say, Mikel pushed him on, but that might have been just to suit Mikel. He could play Partey, or he could play Jorginho, and maybe that's suited with, and he wanted to fit it in. Maybe his plan is to get another attacking midfield player. Shaq had done a similar role for what Declan did probably the year before for Arsenal. But Declan was, the biggest thing about Declan was he's an outstanding man and boy, and he is only a young boy yet. He's got a lot to learn, but he's doing
I know
a good job.
you would never stop someone going to the size of the club or Arsenal and because of what he'd given you, but was there ever opportunity that he was actually going to stay instead of...
No, behind the scenes, we had offered him a fortune to stay. We were putting it up all the time, 2 years before we started. Behind the scenes, we were trying to do it, try to give him, but he had his mind made up. But it was a bit of a problem to us, because you know what it's like when somebody's leaving. I even see it now when you see managers are leaving. Something comes out the dressing room a little bit. It just doesn't quite work it was a bit like that a wee bit with Declan. We always knew we were going to be losing Declan at the end of the year, and it was. But I actually thought, if there's ever a way to conduct yourself and handle yourself right up to the last minute, Declan was signing the autographs, he was doing the pictures with the kids, he was doing everything, all the things you would hope he would do.
Yeah.
He's smart. What's next for David Moyes, apart from the highlights tonight?
Hey, I'll be sleeping by the highlights tonight. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump into anything. I've had some really nice phone calls already.
Offers?
Yes,
Yeah.
but not, asking what I want to do and what I'm doing. But at the moment, I'm
Leicester,
happy
one
to.
of them, was it?
But what I'd like to do at the moment is take a bit of break. I want to stand back and see, look at it again. There's loads and loads of really good coaches and young coaches out there just now, and some exciting stuff. Some trends might go away. We're seeing some things. We're talking about it, and we're seeing it over here in the Euros as well. So I'm just going to take my time.
David, it's been an absolute joy.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. That's it for this episode. Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Bye. Yeah.